Have you ever seen a bomber that flies backwards? With the legendary Su-47 and the Grumman X-29 filling the seats for fighter demonstrator aircraft, an ancestor from World War II rocked this design philosophy and was even used during the war. It defied many odds but worked quite well for the Germans. The Junkers bomber, which had one of the most intriguing legacies in aviation history, was among many late-war German designs. It was not only the most advanced at the time, but it was also equipped with forward-swept wings that allowed it to outrun any Allied fighter and secure an order for 500 of them in order to save Hitler's Third Reich. Let's examine its history and speculate about what might have happened. The main problem that plagued most German bombers in World War II was that their adversaries' payload capacities were just superior. The Avro Lancaster and the B-29 had a maximum payload of 10,000 kilograms, while the Heinkel 177 could only carry about 7,000 kilograms. This is a far cry from the belief that every German aircraft was superior in every way. But by developing jet engine technology in the latter stages of the war, it made room for an entirely new class of insanely fast aircraft. But little did the Germans know that the prospect of the ideal bomber, one that could deliver enormous amounts of ordnance, outrun and outmaneuver Allied fighters, and produce enough in sufficient quantities to perhaps halt the enemy's advance on one front, free up the Germans to concentrate on the other, and possibly even change the course of the war, was more exciting. An unachievable task for the engineers, but they had one trick up their sleeves that involved flipping the wings. The German war machine during World War II required a bigger, quicker, and more maneuverable bomber, which gave rise to the groundbreaking Junkers Ju-287 design in aviation history. It blended forward-swept wings with modern jet technology, giving it extreme maneuverability. The concept of forward-swept wings is an intriguing one that dates back to the Soviet Belyaev DBLK, which was developed before World War II. Around the same time, German airplane designer Hans Wacke was studying the problem of regular swept wings, specifically how early jet engines did not produce enough lift at subsonic speeds. Forward-swept wings would provide more lift during takeoff with these early jet engines, which would improve the aircraft's maneuverability, boost its maximum speed due to reduced drag, and enable it to carry heavier cargo. One crucial problem with this wing design that the Germans kept bringing up was that, in any maneuver, such as a dogfight, tremendous stress would be placed on the outer part of the wings, warping them in the opposite way. Even though aluminum was one of the most technologically advanced materials available at the time, it was still unable to withstand this kind of tension. That is to say, forward-swept wings might work with a bomber, but not with a fighter. The largest benefit of this kind of wing design is that they would be able to mount a massive single bomb bay at the fuselage's center of gravity, which is made possible by the wing's root being farther back than with a typical wing design. To say that the initial prototype was a Frankenstein plane would be an understatement when it was finished in 1944. Despite its overall viewpoint, this project was merely an aerodynamic test bed when it was first developed, which brings us to its straightforward and frank point. The fuselage from the He-177, the tail portion from the Ju-188, the main landing gear from the Ju-352, and, best of all, the front landing gear section from a shot-down B-24 Liberator were the components used to build the first Ju-287 V1. The Jumo 004 engines, which were also utilized in the Me-262, powered this prototype. There are 2 of these in the nacelles beneath the wings, and 2 more in the fuselage's front section. It would have been the only jet bomber in the world without a retractable landing gear, as it lacked this feature. But in order to reduce additional drag, covering would be put around the wheels, a similar solution to what was done to the well-known Stuka. Although flight testing began in August 1944, and the findings were highly encouraging, the design was set to undergo some significant improvements. The Germans discovered a solution for the wing warping problems by relocating all of the engines beneath the wings and a little forward, somewhat creating a balanced mass large enough to reduce some of the load on the wing structure. Two clusters of 3 engines, a combination of the Jumo 004 and BMW 003, would be mounted on the wings of the Ju-287V2. These engines were actually utilized in the He-162 fighters during the late war. In addition to these modifications, the second prototype included an entirely new tail section and a pressurized cockpit taken from the Ju-288. The only thing left was to add the brand new engines to give this jet some true power, as the design met almost all of the specifications. They wanted to outpace any Allied fighters at the moment, and they were aiming for nearly supersonic speed, which their new engines would deliver in spades. Their maximum speed goal was approximately 850 kilometers per hour. The bomber was tested to a maximum speed of 660 kilometers, which is clearly faster than any Allied counterpart, even though they were never able to get to them in time. The third, fourth, and fifth prototypes were constructed, but in 1944, the project was abruptly stopped. Although Junkers was permitted to carry on testing the V1 prototype until about the start of 1945, the project was put on hold for a while. However, in March of that year, out of the blue, they were given an order for 500 planes, with a planned production of 100 per month out of nowhere. However, the Soviets would seize control of the Dassault production facilities and the whole aircraft development team within a month, and as you may imagine, this was not the end of the story. As the Soviet Union advanced, the V1 and V2 prototypes were destroyed to avoid capture, but the V3 and V4 planes, which were meant to be serial production models, were taken prisoner and given to the Soviet Union. The Soviets began developing their own forward-swept wing bomber, known as the EF-131, with all of the engineers' documentation and prototypes. A larger bomber, the EF-140, followed shortly after, with only 2 engines because jet development was progressing so quickly that multiple engines were no longer necessary. However, the project was halted in the 1950s, and the team moved on to more modern jet projects. Nonetheless, this design's legacy endures in the US, Germany, and Russia. Volker himself pioneered the German concept and went on to construct the HFB-320 Hansa jet, the only commercial aircraft with swept wings. The X-29 was developed by the Americans, and the Su-47 was later developed by the Soviet Union and the Russians. The Junkers Ju-287 stands as a remarkable chapter in aviation history. Its unconventional design, featuring forward-swept wings, challenged norms and pushed the boundaries of aerodynamics. Despite facing challenges during development, it flew in prototype form before the end of World War II. Its legacy lies in influencing future aircraft designs and demonstrating the potential of innovative aerodynamic concepts. The Ju-287 remains a testament to bold experimentation and engineering ingenuity during a critical period in aviation evolution. If you like this video about the Ju-287, click this next one to see the fastest seaplane to ever exist.